All right, everyone, welcome to the Barbell Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Brett Scott. Today, we're going to be discussing a whole lot around psychology of working out, motivation, habit change. If you're a trainer, what do you do when someone is just sucking you of your energy and you can't get them to be motivated for themselves? You're running into mental roadblocks with them, with yourself. If you are someone that is, training for something, how do you keep your motivation? And if you're any type of professional that works with people, I think this episode will be helpful in getting you to be able to communicate with people more effectively and get the most out of your conversations and motivations and habits with people that are trying to make a change in their life. So today with me is Dr. Lisa Lewis. She is a clinical psychotherapist, sports psychologist, addiction counselor. She does performance and which we could consider a mental skills coach. And she also has a course of psych skills for fitness pros. So Lisa, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So what is the thing that kind of made you see this gap in, what trainers were able to do with people or coaches, healthcare providers and things? So what was the gap you saw there?
Well, what I noticed was that coaches, personal trainers, physical therapists, chiropractors, people who help people in fitness settings were asking people like my husband, who is a personal trainer, questions about the psychology around motivation and behavior change. And that led to my husband and some other fitness professionals I know saying, you should write an article on working with clients who are negative, or you should come speak at this seminar on working with tricky clients, or you should put out some content on how to set healthy boundaries with your clients when you're a fitness professional. So the door really opened from the side of the fitness industry. And the gap there is that people in fitness are trained about the X's and O's of how to do program design, understand anatomy, physiology. And from what I can see, they receive zero training and support around communication, setting limits, self-care, and professional expectations within the industry. And so they go into the industry giving a lot of their heart and soul and time and energy and can very, very quickly burn themselves out. So I really found a big need in the fitness industry in terms of coaches understanding their own psychology and taking care of their own mental health, and then reflexively understanding the psychology of their clients and how to help them make behavioral changes and attain their goals without draining themselves of their own energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I've been coaching now for 15 years or so. And when I came into it, I thought all about the X's and O's of the program design and the reps and the sets. And now when I have interns come in that are the college kids that want to learn the X's and O's, it's like, well, how did this person respond? What was their body language? What did they say to you? Mm-hmm. And most of my guidance and mentoring of other individuals now is all around psychology and mindset and communication.
Yes.
So it's definitely something, we don't get a lot of in our training at all, even as a professional going through physical therapy school. So what are the biggest challenges you see coaches facing when it comes to interacting with their clients, trying to help that client reach their goal? Where are we falling short because of a breakdown in probably communication and understanding?
I think the simplest way to boil it down is have the coach having trouble meeting the client where they are at. So we come in with a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom and a lot of X's and O's around what's going to work in the gym with nutrition, around, sleeping habits, etc. And often when we are early in our profession, we want to impose those or assign those behaviors to our clients, but our clients don't exist in a vacuum. They are dealing with a lot of competing demands that may limit how much time they have to exercise, how their body feels, how much they can sleep, how present they can be during sessions. And so if we cannot first tune ourselves in to those limitations and work with the resources that the client has allocated to their training or to improving their health, then we're not going to be able to meet them, and then we're not going to be able to guide them and work with them. We're either going to assign way too much, something that feels unreasonable, and they're going to drop out, or they're going to feel like a failure, or we're going to come under the mark and the client's going to be inconsistent or bored or start looking for more challenge, outside of their work with a coach.
And I think we always get to know clients, what they do, how busy they are, this and that. But I think a lot of times I've seen it where like we just don't fully understand it. And so how do we get to the roots of these things with people to really like gain an understanding and be more mindful of it, but also get people to open up about how much these things interfere with their lives? Because I think some people too, if this were a client, they don't realize how much these certain things are taking up time and energy and stress in their lives.
Yes. And that is why I always recommend learning about motivational interviewing, because to get our clients to open up assumes that they have all the insight and information and data to share with us. And a lot of our clients just don't. They just show up and are like, I know I got to train. I know I got to move. I know I got to take off some weight. Tell me what to do and I will do it. And of course, that formula does just not work at all. So it is a process to get to know our clients. And in the process of getting to know them, we are always reflecting and summarizing what we are hearing so that our clients' expectations are managed. So what do I mean by that? Let's say a client comes in and says, hey, I need to lose 30 pounds in 3 months. I have some high school reunion or something. They set it up in a way that sounds unreasonable to you. So you don't say as the practitioner, that sounds pretty unreasonable. We probably need a year or two. You say, tell me more about this, or tell me, what's prompting you to want to kind of start this journey right now. And then you're going to start hearing about how much they work, how busy they are with their kids, whatever's going on with their sleep. They're going to fill in the information. And what you want to do is, number one, listen to that data. You're thinking about what are the resources that this client can allocate to the goals? And how can I be aware of them and make my client aware of them? So when you reflect back or you summarize what your client's saying, say, you know what, Ted, it sounds like you really want to be feeling and looking good when you get to this event in 3 months. You're also telling me you have about 5 hours to sleep. You have about 75 minutes, maybe 2 or 3 times a week to contribute to your fitness. And you're saying it's pretty hard for you to do any of your own food prep or meal prep. So you got to eat out a lot. So it sounds like there's a lot of life stuff that is impinging on you being able to move towards these goals. Does that sound right? So you're kind of checking, did I get that right? And then hopefully what you're doing there is helping them see, yeah, there's a lot of limitations in how much effort I can put in, right? So you're just making sure you're on the same page with your client. You're keeping it real. You're reflecting am I hearing this is what we have to work with? And then you're getting them to say yes or no, or maybe we could do this or that. So there's this constant kind of negotiation, conversation back and forth where you're reflecting and summarizing. So by the time you get to making a plan, it's going to make sense what you say to the client, because the two of you have been sort of processing and hashing out what the actual capacity, time, energy, money, what resources the client has to actually pursue their goal.
Yeah. And that's something too, because like sometimes if someone just came in and it's like, yeah, we can do this, or no, we can't. Like people want to hear what they want to hear. They come in thinking that. So it's like we have to. So is this kind of how a good way to meet people kind of where they're at and give them what they need or what they want, but also kind of steer them into more of what they need, which might be less than they think in a situation like that? Mm-hmm.
You saying like if the expectations are really, really high, whether
some people,
go ahead.
People will come in, like I just had a woman, she does CrossFit, she wants to supplement Olympic lifting. And she's 38 years old, 3 kids, does CrossFit 6 days a week, wants to go to Masters Nationals. And then she's like, I want to supplement 4 days a week of weightlifting, and she's has a full-time job too. And I was like,
wow.
I think you might do better just doing less. Like, you're not recovered.
Right.
Granted, if I'm trying to sell training packages and things, and I'm, a trainer that does want to help people in some way, I think we have to, we kind of have to meet them with their app and be like, hey, you know what? You got to go through it with them and make them realize
There you go.
they're not making the right decision, or they're not coming in with the greatest thought process about how they have to go about this.
Right. And the go through it with them, that's the important part. Because if you would have just listened to her and then said, you know what, you probably need to do less and you probably need to cut back, you're not recovered, she probably would not have been able to meet you there, because she's coming in hot, like, let's add way, way, way more on. So you've got to help her get back to, like, actually probably you need to be adding recovery and reducing, right, the amount of getting after it you're doing. So if you're up here and she's down here, you're not going to be able to, for people who are listening, right? If there's a big discrepancy between what you're thinking about and what your client is thinking about, you've got to show them the math. You've got to talk them through, okay, it sounds like your goal is you want to gain some more strength. You want to gain some more power. When I hear how much you're training, what I'm getting is that you're probably never rested or fully recovered. I'm wondering about, like, how's your HRV doing? How's your perceived exertion doing? And I'm kind of wondering if maybe adding more recovery might do more for you than adding more load. I mean, that's an abridged version, right? But would you say that's closer to walking your client through it?
Yeah. Interesting thing you brought up there, HRV. Are you using that clinically in a psychology setting at all to track someone's?
Yeah, I'm asking about it. So a lot of clients have wearables now, and whether they have an Apple Watch or Fitbit or Whoop, I think about it more as being a source of reliable information than I think about it as being valid. So what I mean is, maybe that's not the honest to God what their heart rate variability is if they were in a lab and they were wearing, like, super legit hardware. But if they're wearing their wearable all the time and we can see what averages are, what causes HRV to go up and what causes it to nosedive, that I think that is really excellent feedback for clients, especially clients who are not really in touch with their emotional life, or who have a hard time saying they're tired or they're not rested. I mean, you probably see plenty of athletes, like this woman in particular, who wouldn't say, oh, I'm gassed and I'm exhausted and I need rest. No. But the HRV is kind of a back door into seeing how you're feeling, because nervous system doesn't lie. And the nervous system and the emotional life, some believe, are pretty much the same thing. So I like HRV, especially because I work with a lot of clients who are very type A, achievement oriented. So they love to grind and they hate to rest. But so they can dismiss emotions. They can be like, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, who cares about that? But they are educated and they understand the importance of their heart rate variability. So when they see that it's in the tank and they feel like trash and they're not very focused and they can't be as productive, then I have kind of a bigger hole to stick the crowbar in, right? Like, you've got some more leverage there that's not just talking about how they feel or subjective experience, to get some more buy-in for self-care. And
so do you see links between, like, HRV and emotional well-being and mindset and things too?
Yes. And this is anecdotal information, so I don't do research in the lab, right? So I have clients I work with and I ask them, like, let's keep track of what your HRV looks like and what's your training load and what's your workload and how many date nights do you get and how much sleep are you getting and how much friend time are you having and how much hobby time are you having? And let me tell you, it looks very highly correlated over time.
Yeah. And then what are the biggest mental roadblocks that you see inhibiting most people from getting to their goals and making progress?
So competing demands. So people are multifaceted. And one of the ways I think about the human mind is that we all have multiple personalities. There's one part of us that wants abs, and there's one part of us that wants bacon. There's one part of us that wants to be, training 6 days a week and maybe be in a competition. And there's another part of us that just wants to go for a walk in the woods or hang out with our kid. And so there are these competing demands. There are different sides or parts of us that want different things. And fitness is hopefully for all of us, for most of us, one of the things we want. There's other things. So if you're a grad student, or you are grieving the loss of a loved one, or you're going through some stuff, that is going to be competing with the time and energy you're putting into taking care of your exercise, nutrition, and sleep. And then there's other times where you got more room in the pie chart, of your life, and you can just really put more of your internal resources into doing the work to get the outcomes you're looking for.
Are there ways we can get people to see, I mean, this is kind of what the whole conversation is about, right? Of getting people to be more healthy, maintain an exercise routine, get the progress and the goals they want. So, what do we have to do as coaches to get people there? And that is a very broad, long, open question, I guess.
It's a great question. And it starts with meeting the client where they're at. And then we have to know how to walk them forward, how to progress them. Just like how we progress exercise, how do we progress change? So in my course, and one idea that I recommend in general coaches know about is the trans-theoretical model of change. So trans-theoretical means across theories. So the folks who created this idea studied a whole bunch of different orientations of psychotherapy, rehabilitation, and basically say people move through change in a series of stages. Some people are thinking about maybe they should do something like get off the couch, or maybe they should exercise, but they're not ready and they're not willing and they're not doing anything. It's just the thought bubble is there. Those people do really well, or they are ready to receive education, information. So they're ready to watch the documentary on like the blue zones and learn about like, oh, if I walk more, if I go up and down the stairs more, if I can get up and off the floor, like I might live longer. So we want to push them out of just contemplating into like, all right, I got to do something. Right? So once somebody's in the, all right, I got to do something, that's the preparation stage. And I think about preparation stage like, have you ever seen somebody try to double Dutch? With the 2 jump ropes?
Yeah.
And when there's 2 people turning the jump ropes, and then there's the person who's going to double Dutch. And if you've ever seen it, they're sort of like moving their body back and forth and like getting ready to jump into the ropes and jump. And that's what I think about preparation is there's motivation, there's activation, there's readiness, but the plan hasn't been established and is not being executed. And this is nice when we get these kind of clients, right? Because they're like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like you can feel that energy there. And what they need is to figure out a plan that is going to be successful. So they might say to you, oh, I'll exercise 6 days a week and I'll get 12,000 steps and I'll eat 1,600 calories, and because they feel that in their heart. But that's when you got to look at, okay, what are the resources? How much time do you have? How much food prep, right? And the goal of the coach there is to make sure whatever plan gets planned is going to be able to be executed. Because once that person moves into action stage, we need success. So the action stage is the first 90 days of a new habit. And a lot of programs that I see go wrong are when coaches do like a 60 or 90 day program, because you're not getting out past that like initiation of a new habit. So we need 90 days of habituation of whether it's getting to bed earlier or going for a walk in the morning or getting into training. People in the action stage need encouragement. They need pats on the back. They need like Instagram posts of successful workout. They need reward. Whether that's like, I don't know, having a special date night or getting their face up on the board at the gym, right? They need that extra juice to keep the energy flowing. And then when people are in maintenance stage, that's when they really need the least amount of external reinforcement. because they're in the habit. They have a lot of internal reinforcement because they feel good, their body feels better, maybe they have less pain, better energy, etc. And then we have relapse. And relapse is part of the whole picture. And hopefully our clients never have relapse, but this is, Western society, and we have tons of relapse. And so those people just need to take a look at, okay, what happened? What was the monkey wrench? What interfered with sustaining the habit? And what can we do with the environment or with goals the next time around so that you can stay in that maintenance phase? So that's a really long answer. And the summation is you meet the client, what stage of change they're at, and then you use interventions that will help them progress from that level to the next level. So if someone's just contemplating exercise, it's not time to be like meathead coach and like cut the shit and get off the couch. Not that people out there listening are doing that, but they're not going to respond to that. People in maintenance who are like this woman at CrossFit, she probably loves getting coached up and kind of that more tough, that's motivating to her, right? So you have to line up the intervention with where that person is in their readiness in their stage of change.
And so where do most professionals go wrong with trying to motivate clients?
Yeah. So there's a theory of motivation that I live by. It is the self-determination theory. And that what I like about that theory is that there are different qualities of motivation. It's not like there's one bucket and you either have more, less, or none. It's like there's all these different flavors, like when you go to the ice cream parlor and there's all these different buckets or vats of motivation. And us as fitness professionals and coaches, we typically have a very high quality level of motivation, which means pretty intrinsic. Like it's a lot of our identity or what makes us happy or to feel fulfilled or engage with the world, to train, to be active, to take care of our bodies. So we are up here at this really high level a lot of the time. Our clients who are new and coming in are at this pretty externally motivated, like my wife says either I'm not allowed to drink IPA or I have to come train 3 times a week. Or the doctor says if I don't do something, I'm gonna have a heart attack, right? So there is a big discrepancy in the quality of motivation. That motivation is motivation. It's just external and therefore not as sustainable and not as powerful as more internalized motives. So when we come at our clients, people in the fitness industry, with like, you can look like me, act like me, be like me, and like, this is my passion and this is my life, and you need to make room for these behaviors in your life. And we're talking to them about up here, they're like, they cannot relate to that. They're not there. They're just at a very different level of quality of motivation. So we have to meet them at the external reward. Like if they are there because they want to get their wife off their back or get their blood pressure down and that's it, then we have to start there and talking about that and what are the behaviors that are going to achieve that. Now, between you and I, will their program look pretty close to the same thing? Yeah, probably, right? But what are we talking to them about? We're talking about, I want you to have your IPAs on the weekend. So let's get in here 3 times a week and get you a training effect and work on some of what you're eating for breakfast and lunch, and then we'll see what happens, right? I'm not talking to him about wherever I'm at in my own philosophy or in my own, what I feel is important or value. I'm talking about what he values, right? So I think that's one problem in fitness, because we do look up to fitness professionals who have like an amazing physique or get up at 4 a.m. and do these crazy, cold plunges and then are busting their ass in the gym and eat, sleep, and breathe fitness. But that lifestyle is not where most of the population is at, and certainly not people who are coming in to begin, a journey with exercise or physical activity.
And how do we get people to, I think this is one of the biggest things I've always seen people that's kind of like you just said, internal versus external motivations of the people that are there for themselves, for their own internal reasons.
Yep.
Do way better.
Yeah.
than those that my wife wanted me to come here. I want to do this for my kids, and it's like, well, why do you want it for you? Or how do we get people to find internal motivation? Because I feel like we have to all have it in there somewhere. Maybe we don't. I don't know. What do you say about that?
I love that question. You're right. It develops. So what we want is from the motivation to go from external to more and more and more and more internal, to the point where it's baked into the crust. Because once it's baked in, it's not going anywhere, right? So if we use reward and punishment, like anybody who's listening who's had a puppy or a toddler knows, there are lots of behaviors that you have to offer reward for to do. Like little ones brushing their teeth or getting to bed on time, or, puppies, training them, basically, we're offering reward. Or we're saying there's going to be a punishment, some kind of removal, right, of reward if they don't do it. That is really good for initiation of some kind of behavior. So it can get people started down the path of, I've seen challenges of like, get a certain amount of steps a day and get points, that can get somebody started. But then what we want is for that to start to feel good. So the next higher quality of motivation from external reward is, the word is introjected regulation. And what it means is the person feels pride, or they want to work out to avoid feeling guilty or shameful. So there is like some emotion involved that's internal, but it really kind of has to do with the social environment. And that works too. It's a little more effective than reward, but it wears off. So we want it to internalize more. More internalized motivation is, I want to be around for my kids, or I want to be the first man in my family not to die of a heart attack in his 50s. So they identify the outcome as being congruent with their values, but they don't necessarily like the activity. So if you've met clients who are like, I don't want to be here, but I want to be able to play with my grandkids and I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, that motivation is much stickier and more internalized than I want $20 or I want a pizza party or whatever external reward is offered. Then the next higher quality of motivation is integrated regulation, which is most fitness professionals, which is engaging in the behaviors of, running Tough Mudder or doing a Spartan race or an Ironman or competing in a powerlifting competition. It allows you to be you, to demonstrate who you are as a person, what your personality is. So whenever there's an ER, like a CrossFit-er, a runner, right? That means that activity is baked into the crust of who I am. Right? So this is like people like us who lift and train. If you have ever talked to somebody who's had a good workout, they talk about their muscles being sore and they could barely stand up and this hurt and that hurt. And we're like, yeah, that's great, right? You ask a new person why they don't want to lift weights. They're like, oh, it's going to hurt. It's the same exact sensation, completely different interpretation of what that sensation means and is because of where the motivation lies. That's it. And then the gold standard, like the highest level of motivation, is intrinsic motivation, which is you do it for no other reason than the internal state that gets created, which is either joy, like being in the zone playing a sport, or effectance, which is like ass kickery. So really like hitting your number or feeling like you're dominating, you're really demonstrating competency and mastery of a skill. And there's a lot of research around intrinsic motivation in sport, because sport's fun. And a lot of people who are sedentary are like, exercise isn't fun. So we don't have that. It's not as easily accessible to feel joy and effectance for general population, but we can help them to feel that pride. We can help them to identify the outcomes that are meaningful to them. And we can help them start to integrate, health-related behaviors into their personality, into how they see themselves.
Are there ways you would suggest, like gamifying and putting objective measurements or tracking into someone's fitness routine to make it more of a game where like games and sports are fun? Are there ways you would suggest doing that for the general population of people trying to lose weight?
Yes, but nothing blanket, because I think that when it comes to having sustainable habits of physical activity, it really has to be individualized to what the person enjoys and what really. So some people, for example, I'm an indoor cycling instructor. So a handful of years ago, it became popular to have what was called a leaderboard, and you'd be on your spin bike, but like there'd be who's exerting the most wattage and going the fastest, and people would be jockeying for the top 5 spots. And some people loved that. It would make them work harder. Some people hated that, and they did not want to be on the leaderboard, and they did not want to be competitive in that way. So for some people that works, and for some people it doesn't. I think what coaches have to tune into is what gets your client jazzed, what makes them feel proud of themselves, what helps them feel like they can attain their goals outside of exercise, that they're talking about, like running around with their kids. And then how can you program more of that, or how can you progress those bits that they're connected to, that they're bought into?
Makes sense. Yeah, the Peloton leaderboard would kill me, because I'd be like, I'm just going to do an easy, light 20-minute zone 2 ride today. And then I'd be like, wait, I can beat this person. And it's like, I'm in zone 5 for 20 minutes dying. And then regretting it the next day. I was like, I need to just get rid of the whole app and just ride the bicycle.
Yeah. So, it's some people, gamification and competition, they really love that. And then other people not so much. Or probably if you needed to have a race day train or have a really high exertion, that would be great for you. But then other days, if it's time for recovery or moderate, you don't need that leaderboard, because it's going to get you off track.
Yeah. And so a lot of times too, it seems like people, and this is kind of a sales thing, I guess, right? People will come, do a consult, whatever, and they don't sign up. And the biggest objection now is it's money, right? At the end of the day, like, oh, we can't do this, we can't afford it, whatever. It's like, well, you went through this whole thing, we told you roughly what the price was going to be, whatever. And it's like, usually the problem they say isn't the problem that actually exists. What are the big things holding people back from reaching their goals? Or like, we see people too all the time, like they come in, they start, and like they love to self-sabotage themselves. Why do people do this?
Yeah, so a couple different questions. One about the money. There's a lot of crap that is free or close to free on the internet. So could people download or go on YouTube and find some training programs? Yeah. But the reason why AI will never replace personal trainers is because of the relationship, and because of the ability to be flexible and meet clients where they were at and understand the dynamics of their life. So they're coming in to get the pitch because they need that. Whether people say accountability or what they need is the relationship, as far as I'm concerned. Because they could go for free and ask ChatGPT for a workout and get a pretty good one, if they put in their time and their energy that they have available and the equipment they have at home and so on and so forth. So I think we have to do a better job as a society. This is a pretty big statement, but to encourage people to spend money on the best investment you can possibly make, which is on your health. So I think people hesitate because there's a lot of cheap garbage that's out there. When it comes to sabotage, I think that comes back to competing demands. And somebody may really want to lean out and get strong, and they may really like to sit on the couch each night and eat half a sleeve of Oreos. And so both of those things are true at the same time, right? Yeah. The Oreos are delicious, and I really need to slim out. And the struggle that people go through with maybe, 5 days out of the week, they can stick with the goal. And then 2 days out of the week, they're like, Oreos are delicious, right? And there's that back and forth conflict. So I think as coaches, we need to be able to help them talk about that, right? We want them to be free to talk about the Oreos in the session, because the last thing we want is for them to say they're not eating any Oreos, or they don't know why they're not getting to their goals. We want that to be able to be in the room so we can just talk about it. And And I think sometimes clients get the idea like, oh, I can't say what I'm actually eating or drinking or doing. And then they don't. And then they can't be joined with the coach. And then they drop out, or then they're not being honest with themselves. And they're like, why aren't I getting results? Well, because you're not talking about the Oreos, and we're not dealing with the fact that that's putting you in a caloric surplus 6 days out of a week or whatever, you know. So that this might be, I might have gone too far down the rabbit hole to answer your question.
No, I was thinking more along the lines of like people will come for like 3, 4, 5 months, whatever, doing great, and then they just fall off. Like one little thing happens in life, and then they just fall off the face of the earth. And then they might come back 6 months later for a few months, and then fall off again.
Yeah, I mean, what's getting in the way? I think it would be worth talking about, like, what's coming up that is getting in the way. And obviously something is going on during the months that they're training. It's like whatever the life thing is that took them out of that habit was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. There's probably other pieces to that puzzle. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you have an example we could unpack, or is there like one person that comes to mind?
Oh, there's lots. Over the years I've been doing this, you know, just people will be doing great, and then it's like, something happened with my kid, or my mom got sick, or whatever, and it's like, that was just their excuse to like completely just fall off.
There you go. It was their excuse. So what else was happening that they were looking for an excuse, or they were ready for an excuse? You know what I mean? So the excuse is like opportunity, but why do they want an opportunity? Because someone like you or me, like, I mean, if there was nuclear war, I would probably still get my movement in. So I am not looking for an excuse. So what is happening with that person that they're looking for an excuse? Is it still pretty externally regulated motivator that's keeping them in? So you don't need very heavy of a straw to break that camel's back.
Yeah. Very true. And then going back to the other point, though, you did bring up something good of, do you think, like you said, like a lot of people will come in to a gym working with a trainer or whatever, and they think we live this perfectly fit, healthy lifestyle where we don't drink, we don't ever have junk food, we don't, you know, ever veer off of our regular diet, and I've had people that have come into the field and be like, I can't talk to my clients about this. Like they can't know I went out drinking last night. I'm like, why? It's you. Do you think people are more open to talking about these things when we are more transparent about our own lifestyles and our own shortcomings and share our vulnerabilities? Yeah,
I do. I think being a human being is a very important factor in having a relationship that is real and being able to connect with your clients. And, you know, the better you look, maybe the more human you should be. Because if clients think this is like this totally unattainable thing because all of your habits and behaviors are, I don't know, free from, I don't know, perfection, dare I say, they're going to feel like what you have is not possible for them and that you're not going to get it if they're a human being.
Yeah. It's funny too, because a lot of people ask me too, like, well, you know, why would this person work out with this person? Like, they're not even in that good of shape. Like, why is my mom training with this guy? Like, look at him. And they'll show me like his Instagram or something. I'm like, maybe because he's more relatable. Like, you don't need to be like, not everyone wants to train with the huge jack guy that's got, you know, just muscles all over and feet below him.
And it's like, what does his ability to train himself have to do with his ability to be a good coach?
Exactly.
I mean, some of the best, greatest, brilliantest minds in the world are terrible teachers. So that's absolutely right. And I think if we can share with our clients that we do eat junk food and sometimes we don't get enough sleep and so on and so forth, it just helps to normalize and then to say, okay, how do we keep putting the X's in the boxes and working on the habits that make us feel our best as much as we possibly can?
For sure. And then as a coach, what are the things there's plenty of times a patient, client, whatever, can suck the energy and life out of us and just cause us a lot of frustration or negativity. So how do we get out of that? Because that's kind of what ends up getting us to lead to burnout. And it's interesting because burnout is a big trending topic right now, and these are supposed to be some of the most rewarding career paths to be in. Yet everyone's leaving because they're all burnt out.
Right. So I developed a lecture on this topic that I call RNA, which stands for resistance, negativity, and ambivalence. And the reason I put those three words in that order to spell out RNA is because I want coaches to think about those psychological phenomenon as being natural and part of the human experience. So it is part of human nature to resist change, even if we want it. And even like as old school as Sigmund Freud wrote about how all change involves resistance. The client needs to get to that feeling of basically what we would call time under tension, to deal with changing and not changing, and to really talk and work out the reasons why they don't want to change. So we as coaches have to encounter and sit with our clients' resistance to change, because I'm sure we've all had one or two clients who we tell them what to do and they do it and everything works out rosy, but that's like a one-off, you know? So resistance is part of the deal that you're dealing with coaching, and the way that you deal with it is not to be pulling and working hard to convince and debate, but to be what I call staying in the posture, which is to continue to reflect back to your client what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and asking them, how's that working for you? Like the old Dr. Phil. So what we want clients to feel, we want them to feel the resistance. We want them to feel time under tension and be like, oh, I'm sick and tired of this behavior. I need to cut it out and try a new behavior. Negativity is also part of the human experience. So there's a concept called negativity bias, which comes from evolutionary psychology. And a couple of psychologists who wrote the original paper said, we are naturally selected to be negative because being negative and on the lookout actually helped us survive, right? So being more cautious, being more pessimistic, we may actually be naturally selected for that. So the mind is more sticky to negative people, places, things, experiences. What that means is that we as coaches need to load the positive so that we get balanced thinking. Because a client will take one negative comment or one bad workout or one data point that's negative, and they will focus on it. And so we need to counterbalance that. And there's a psychologist named Barbara Fredrickson who says you really need a 3-to-1 ratio, positive to negative, because negative is so heavy and it tips the scales and it impacts thinking so profoundly. And then the A is ambivalence. Ambivalence is that time under tension. Part of me wants to eat Oreos, part of me wants to have abs. And there's a tension that gets created, a frustration. And what we don't want to do is take our client out of that plank or that iso hold. We want them to feel the tension. On the one hand, you love watching White Lotus and eating snacks. On the other hand, you're really working hard to try to get leaner. And instead of us saying, obviously the right thing to do is stop snacking, we don't do that. We let them hang out with that tension moment. I want this, I want that. So that they can shift into change behavior. Like, yeah, I guess I could sit on the couch and eat snacks the rest of my life, but I don't want that. I have to stop that, right? So it's letting the client sit with ambivalence, loading positive to help balance out the negative, and learning that like there's going to be resistance. That's part of what makes change happen.
Interesting. And then, yeah, how does all of this end up leading to us getting burnt out as providers or professionals?
Yeah, so we get burnout because Well, for a few reasons. Number one, I think the industry overall is a setup for getting burnt out. So there are these wild expectations that coaches should like get results for their clients. When they can't lift the weights for them, they can't eat the calories for them. The person who is doing all the work is the client, and the coach is the guide. They are the Sherpa. So they can provide the frame, they can provide the X's and O's, the support and the technical support and build competency. But the person who gets the results is the client. And so I think this whole idea, like, I'm going to get you results, like, you know, you sign up with me and I'm going to get you there. I think that there's a built-in pressure on the coach to make magic happen. Because if your client is not there and they're not ready, they're not going to get results. I also think it's not fair to expect coaches to be available for texting and for emailing and for nights and for weekends and for check-ins and just all this giving with no boundaries. And I don't think there's any education around boundaries and when coaches are available. So a lot of coaches, I think with positive intention of wanting to help and be there for their clients, just gas themselves by, you know, giving too much of themselves away. And then I think it's, you know, dealing with clients who are people and are negative, resistant, ambivalent, and feeling like it's either up to us to change that, or if we just work hard enough, are empathic enough, are giving enough of our own energy, that like we will change that we can infuse them with our motivation. And that's not how it works. We can't take our gas and put it into their bodies. We have to help them access their own gas, their own fuel, and then set them up so they can leverage that.
Mm-hmm. And so are there ways one thing would be just setting expectations of boundaries and expectations from the beginning. Right. That would probably help a lot of people a lot. Especially, this remote coaching thing when, I've had people call me at 10:30 on a Sunday night to like check in. I was like, no, we're not doing that.
No. Right. Good for you.
But what are the other things we can do as coaches to just like not let someone take the monkey off their shoulder and put it on ours? Right.
So that's where the reflection and the summary comes in.
Okay.
What I'm hearing you tell me is what I'm getting from you today is, you know, you really don't have time outside of the 2 hours a week you can be here in session. So, you know, I get that your resources are super limited and that's going to get in the way of you getting towards your goal. Does that sound right? Or am I hearing that right? Or I wonder if that's how you see it. So you want to make sure you're on the same page with your clients. Or, you know, I see that I'm writing these programs for you for 3 days a week or 4 days a week, but it's really hard for you to get more than one in just because everything else you got going on. So what I see is like setting this 4-day-a-week program up is kind of a setup for you to be frustrated and not to be able to get to where you want to be, right? Okay, what can we do with the time you have? Or do you want to talk about, do you see any room anywhere else? Or what's getting in the way of you training? Trying to join with them to get them to say to you, you know what I'm doing that's screwing it up is X, Y, and Z. Or you know what, I really could skip X meeting and train on Wednesdays instead of. So they have all the answers. It's like, how can you set them up to start answering them? How can you pose the right questions to get them looking at the data with you and then figuring out a new way forward?
Yep. And then as far as that burnout goes, like what things can us coaches and things do to make sure the check engine light isn't coming on? Or what things would show us maybe that the check engine light is coming on for us and our own well-being?
I think irritability is number one. You know, I tell my clients irritability is not a personality trait. It is a symptom. And it is a yellow flag that something's wrong. So I think about, you know, mental health immune system being just like a physical immune system. It can be really strong and it can be weakened. And when your mental health immune system is weakened by chronic stress, insufficient sleep, social time, whatever, it is more vulnerable. And when you're more vulnerable, there's going to be some kind of feeling or behavior that crops up. Irritability is one. People who deal with anxiety, they start getting more anxious and lose their appetite. People who tend towards depression, they start to be more negative, more sedentary. So there's an ish, like everybody has a way that they react. So for example, some people, when they start to get run down, they get a cold sore or they get a sore throat, right? That's their immune system is responding to it's being weakened. And mental health is very similar. So get to know what your signs are. If you start snapping at people who don't deserve to be snapped at, that's a yellow flag. And what are you doing to put fuel back in your tank? And that's different for different people. Introverted people, and there's a lot of them in the fitness space, they need time to themselves. They need time one-to-one in relationships. If you like to travel, make sure you're scheduling traveling. If you like to eat, make sure you're planning for those restaurant trips or whatever the case may be. I mean, people laugh at the word self-care and think that it's kind of a foo-foo thing, but it is not. It is the way that you are going to prevent burning yourself out. And it is as much as a priority as CEUs and all the other demands, that are imposed on you.
Absolutely. I've been there before, and it's not a place you want to be once you get there. And it's hard to get out of too.
Well, that's right. Some people don't get out and they leave the field, right? We don't want that.
Yeah. Well, I know you have to go, Lisa, so thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to get into all the lessons you've taught Tony Gentlecore over the years as you're married to him, but we'll save that for another episode.
Okay.
But if people are interested in reaching out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you. My website is my home base. That's drlewisconsulting.com. And you can see some articles I've written, other podcasts I've done. You can also learn more about my courses. So Psych Skills for Fit Pros Volume 1 focuses on some topics we covered or briefly touched on, which is motivation, how that works, the stages of change, how to change behavior, and motivational interviewing. Psych Skills for Fit Pros Volume 2 came out earlier this year, and is inside the coach's mind. So it's not focused on the client psychology, it's focused on yours. So how does your cognition work? Do you understand your cognitive strengths and your blind spots? Do you understand your emotional life and the cues that you may need, take care of yourself? And then understanding professional boundaries, how to set them and how to deal with clients who push on them. And then we also spend some time in that course talking about your professional self, how you put your mission and your purpose and your values out there, and how do those align with who you are on the inside. So you can find that information on the website. There's also psychskillsforfitpros.com, which has a lot of information about the courses, which are both approved by the NSCA and by NASM for CEUs.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time for coming on today. And anything else you wanted to tell the listeners before you leave?
No, thank you, Brett. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
"84% of you that listen to this podcast frequently do not hit the follow button. If you've enjoyed any of these episodes, could you do us a favor and hit the follow button, leave a rating, and maybe leave us a review? It helps this channel more than you know, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. If you'd like to know more about training in person or online with Brett's Gym, Architect Fitness, please follow us on social at ARKITECT Fitness on Instagram, or visit ARKITECTFitness.com. Or if you want to rehab with barbell therapy online or in person, check out @barbell.therapy or visit barbelltherapyandperformance.com. Thank you for taking the time to listen.